very important transcriptional modulator. In absence of pKa, it was unable to bind to the particular site, a particular promoter site, which is known as cyclic AMP response element. That means a stretch of DNA which is known as cyclic AMP responsive element, CRE, and this protein binds to this CRE, therefore it is named as CREB, that means CRE binding protein. Clear? Now, since this CREB was activated by phosphorylating a particular serinothreonine residue, they become active, and it, in association with another its co-activator CBP, that means CREB binding protein, that therefore CREB and CBP binds to CRE and transcribes a particular part to give rise to elicit a genetic response. So, this is how GS elicits its activity. Clear? I think it is clear. Now, so there is a Watt diagram. There is another kind of G protein, as we all know, which we called as GQ, right? And the basic difference of GQ and GS is regarding the which enzyme is activated by the activated alpha GTP. In case of GS, it was adenylene cyclase, that means alpha GTP activated adenylene cyclase and creates cAMP second messenger. Whether, and in case of GQ, what happens is that the alpha subunit or the alpha subunit which dissociates from beta gamma, it basically activates a particular phospholipase which is known as phospholipase C beta, right? And this phospholipase C beta, it basically creates two second messengers. One of them is IP3, another one is DAG, another one it creates or elicits another second messenger, that is calcium. Now, how it does so, let us talk about it. We are talking about GQ, right? So, this GQ, so now let us find out what is the substrate of GQ. That means what is the substrate of PLC beta. The as we all know that alpha GTP activates phospholipase C. The phospholipase C acts on a particular phospholipid, a specialized phospholipid, that is known as PIP2, that means phosphoinositol 4,5 bisphosphate. Clear? Now, let us talk about the substrate of this PLC beta or PIP2. This PIP2, these are basically a phospholipid or specialized phospholipid, and they are predominantly present in the cytosolic leaflet of the plasma membrane. And as we all know, phospholipids are nothing but esters made up of fatty acids and glycerol and phosphate, and this phosphate binds to some other groups, accordingly they are named. So, therefore, accordingly there can be phosphatidylserine, ethylenamine and etc. All of these are, the basic structure remains same, that means the fatty acid, the glycerol, the phosphate, they remains same, only the phosphate binds to a different head group, and therefore they are this particular group is hydrophilic, as we all know, and these hydrophilic head groups, according to them, they are classified into, phospholipids are classified into different classes. And this PIP2 has inositol base, which is a particular kind of sugar, and it has it can be phosphorylated in different sites. In this case, they are PIP2 or phosphatidyl inositol 4,5 bisphosphate. Apart from one phosphate that attaches this group with the glycerol, it has two additional phosphates which are free, and they are present at the fourth position of the sugar of this sugar and fifth position of this hexose sugar. So, inositol is a kind of hexose sugar. Now, once phospholipase C beta is activated, it basically cleaves, since it is a phospholipase, that therefore it should cleave the phosphate or phospholipid bonds, that means the phosphate and lipid bonds, that means the bond between glycerol and phosphate, and since it cleave this kind of bond, it results in formation of two molecules, one being the fatty acid containing glycerol, that means diacyl glycerol. It has two fatty acid chains, therefore it is known as diacyl glycerol. A glycerol having two fatty acid or fatty acyl chains, and the released phosphate along with the 4,5 position now becomes 1,4,5 tris phosphate, and this inositol with 3 phosphorylation is known as IP3. Okay, and this IP3 is basically a diffusible second messenger, whereas the DAG is a stationary second messenger. So, when the signal comes, it activates similarly alpha GTPase or alpha GTP binds to it. GDP releases, GTP binds to alpha subunit becomes active. Now alpha subunit goes and activates phospholipase C beta. Phospholipase C beta cleaves it, creates IP3 and DAG. It is clear, I think. Now what happens is this IP3 is basically a very important second messenger. It diffuses away and it binds to the ER, and it has a particular receptor in ER. It has a channel, a calcium channel, which is IP3 gated. That means whenever IP3 binds with this channel of ER, which is a storage site of calcium, has a high amount of calcium concentration, almost near to 10 to the power minus 3 molar, compared to cytosol, which is 10 to the power minus 7 molar. Understood? So, before this calcium was inside ER, it was stored inside, and as IP3 is present, IP3 gated calcium channels open, and due to that and due to this high concentration gradient, calcium comes out of ER, and now calcium will act as a very important second messenger system. Clear? Now, after calcium comes out of this ER, it can elicit different kinds of responses. One is mediated by a protein which is known as protein kinase C, as we all know. After coming out of this ER, since as the calcium concentration of cytoplasm gets high, this protein kinase, which is known as protein kinase C, which is also a serine threonine kinase and similar in function, only its activity is regulated by calcium, that is why it is known as protein kinase C. So, it is also an allosteric enzyme, and calcium being its regulator. So, when calcium binds to this PKC, this PKC goes towards the cell membrane. Previously it was not going selectively towards cell membrane. As calcium comes and binds with PKC, the PKC goes towards the cell membrane, and therein it binds to DAG. The DAG which was present due to the cleavage of PIP2, it remained there. Now the calcium bound PKC went towards DAG, and in presence of DAG and phosphatidylserine present in this cytosolic leaflet, this PKC becomes active, and after its activation it elicits different kinds of physiological responses. Clear? Now, so this is another diagram exhibiting how GQ exhibits its functionality. This is a protein kinase C which was present inside cytosol. After calcium bound with PKC, it goes towards selectively towards the DAG, and in presence of DAG and in presence of especially DAG and phosphatidylserine, it became active. Now, another very important regulator, calcium, it can elicit in absence of PKC by means of a protein kinase known as a CAM kinase, and CAM kinase is activated by the CAM kinase. The regulator of CAM kinase is also a allosteric enzyme, and its regulator is calmodulin. Okay, and this calmodulin is another molecule which is activated by calcium binding. Clear? So, therefore, calcium calmodulin complex. So, before calcium released from the ER, calmodulin was inactive. As calcium was released, calcium binds to calmodulin and it activated calmodulin. As calmodulin became active, it simply goes and binds to the CAM kinase, and it prevents the inhibitory domain of CAM kinase to inactivate its catalytic domain, right. So, as CAM kinase simply goes and binds with the inhibitory domain, the catalytic domain frees away, it becomes active and it now becomes fully active, and it in presence of calcium calmodulin, the CAM kinases phosphorylate that Krebs protein and elicits a genomic response. Understood? So, this is how the three different second messenger, that means DAG, IP3 and calcium in conjecture with each other can elicit a different kinds of heightened cellular response. So, till then I think I have discussed a lot about cell signaling. Till then, happy learning.